while. It's been a crazy summer. We've been having a lot of events going on, but we're glad to be back. So today we're going to kind of discuss things over shadow work.
Yeah, so shadows are parts of ourselves that we have tucked way in of our being and became ashamed, insecure about due to our upbringing, society, all of that stuff. So just parts of self that we felt was not meant to be shown to others, that we felt, again, ashamed of.
So I think it's exploring that dark side of like everything that you feel like you rejected, or feel like ashamed about, or just kind of feel like that you feel some type of guilt for feeling certain ways. It's just kind of exploring that side, exploring the sometimes where you might just feel like, shoot, I should have reacted differently, or there's just negative parts of me. You see negative parts, but really it's just kind of integrating the dark shadow sides into just yourself. So having a good balance of both.
Right, and it's like they're not necessarily negative. It's just
Right.
that's how we felt. Again, through how we were raised and how society put those type of shadows or categorize them as negative. So
And
Yeah.
with that,
That just might be
yeah.
things that we don't like about ourselves
Yeah.
because, like what was said, society or our upbringing kind of made us feel that way.
Or our own insecurities, and
Yeah.
just the way that you create those like trauma responses, and then kind of just follow, like, instead of using that to be better, sometimes we just kind of get stuck in it. But I think that we should always approach any type of shadow work with love, being compassion towards those parts of us, because there's always a reason why we, created those types of trauma responses or negative ways of thinking, or our insecurities and all that. So
And the reason why shadow work is so important too is because sometimes what others perceive as negative, they can actually harm other people. Like, we can develop these patterns through our shadows. One of the examples we were talking about, that one of my shadows that became like a pattern in relationships for me was the rejection wound. It came through my rejection wound. I had tucked away the shadow, what I perceived was a shadow, of letting another person know that I cared for them in a certain way, because maybe they didn't feel the same way back, and then that would trigger my rejection wounds. So I would have this pattern of giving them hints, and then just to see if they liked me back. And then if they didn't, I would pull back, and then if they did, I would still pull back, because I would feel like, well, at some point they're going to reject me. And so I kind of tucked away the shadow of just not being authentic with myself and who I, cared about, and just been straight with them. And accepting the shadow of rejection, the wound, and that it's okay to be rejected, that to sit with that and to just be like, it doesn't mean it's my worth, or it isn't it could be something on the other side of that person that has totally nothing to do with me. So there was that. So shadows can come up to be patterns that that can harm other people, because that in and out of energy and being inconsistent doesn't make another person feel safe. It just makes them confused in the end, you know. So that was like one of patterns that I worked, one of the shadow work I was doing on myself that I worked on a while ago and stuff. But that's just an example. Otherwise, like other shadows that you would consider shadows is like fearing in everything in life and your career, and you're just holding yourself back, you know, because of fear of how society will perceive you, or just getting out of your comfort zone.
Anything too, just starting out with like doing the shadow work it shouldn't be taken lightly, because I think that a lot of people who aren't ready to do shadow work and are, you know, try to do it like brings you to a dark place. And when you are, because you're dealing with, you know, the sides of you that you're not very like proud of sometimes, or you're that you're ashamed of, or you feel guilt over. So it's really hard to just say I'm going to do my shadow work. It's not that easy. It's really complicated, and you should really not take it lightly, because you can get really stuck in that place of, you know, the negative, especially if you have really low self-esteem, and then you're bringing in things that are already, you know, going to make you feel worse. It's not going to be very helpful at the end. So sometimes, going to a psychologist or counselor or therapy, doing all that to kind of guide you in like integrating things slowly, definitely helps. But yeah, and it's just always bringing it back to being love-based and having compassion about those, that guilt, that shame, or whatever negative feelings you have about yourself, or that shadow side. So
Yeah, shadow work is definitely not easy. Like, I've been doing shadow work for 4 years. It's been quite the journey. I keep dissecting parts of myself that I didn't know, and it's a lot of work. That's why, but shadow work is part of the healing process. In order to be able to, like, my advice of how I started to do shadow work is I did some healing before I started my shadow work. Well, the healing had to do with some of my shadows as well, but it's doing your healing so that you can be self-aware of your shadows, taking accountability of those shadows, and like other relationships or how those came out in other relationships, taking accountability of it, and then accepting them and integrating them and saying it's a good thing to have like those shadows are good, because they'll be catalysts to pushing you forward to action things in your life and to give you confidence. Because when you accept and see that within yourself, you can distinguish that when it comes to any type of relationship that you have. You can see that in a person. You can, you know, you'll be able to see red flags like easily, like and just accepting accepting everyone where they're at in their journey. You know, yeah, you'll see it, but it doesn't mean that you're going to, just because a person triggers you or triggers like a shadow or wound of yours, that you're not going to, you know, you're not just going to push them completely away, you know. So it's a lot of work, but it is revitalizing, because you're learning through the process, and every single human connection that you come here to have, like, people will come into your path to shed light on those shadows of yours. And I think it's a beautiful thing to see that within yourself, accept who you are, own it, and yeah, it just gives you confidence, and then you're less likely to be triggered quickly by people, because you own who you are. You already know who you are, and you understand that a trigger is just a trigger. It doesn't mean we have to run from it, doesn't mean we have to push it away, doesn't mean we have to stop talking to people because of it. We just accept it, we allow those feelings to subside, and then you talk it out with, and those that you love that are around you that you're going to be triggered by or anything, and they will understand, you know, especially if you are around people that are on a self-growth, self-love journey, such as yourself. So
Well, and I think one way to be able to identify those shadows is through ego work. Really paying attention to those ego stories and what the ego is telling you. And then identifying what feelings are coming up, or, you know, what shadows are coming up. But I think for me, one of my shadows is I'm a control freak. And so, I don't know, like Juana said, it can be seen as something negative, but it could also be something that's helpful, like in the workplace or with like school, you know, the discipline, that kind of stuff. But it has caused a lot of issues for me too. You know, I don't do well with change too much, and also in relationships, it's really hard, especially if there's two people that have that control freak kind of mentality. So if you're both kind of fighting over control, it can be difficult. But and that's one of mine. What about you?
See, like for me, it was a little different because it's like I guess there's a place in your life where you're like very aware of everything, but it's just like for me, I decided not to go down the shadow work until I felt that I was like, okay, this is something that I can, I don't feel shame over it, or I don't feel like when I talk about it, it makes me feel negatively about myself. I feel like, okay, this is something that I can talk about and be okay talking about it. Which like for me would be people pleasing. I'm always just, it's a positive and it's a negative. It's a negative because sometimes I put myself last a lot of the times, and then at the end of, you know, making sure everybody else is okay, I abandon myself and my health or my just mental health, anything, and then I just like know when I'm like out of whack. Slowly I had to remove myself from certain people just because I knew for myself that I needed, whether it was a break or I just needed to step back and like figure out, okay, what are my choices? What do I want to do? Is this coming wholeheartedly from me? Like, are these choices or, you know, acts of kindness really coming from like a good place in my heart, or is it just doing it out of just something I have to do, or is it just like a cycle of things that you just do, you know, a pattern or whatever. So I knew that was a huge one that I needed to learn, and it was really difficult, and I had to deal with a lot of different types of relationships, and I had to do a lot of just like rethinking what is important to me right now, you know, or what is it that makes me happy, and how can I like not feel stuck, and use it. I don't want to abandon the people that I care about, and I don't want to completely block them out of my life, but I do want that healthy boundary between the two, and find that good balance in all of my relationships. But yeah.
And I think like with shadow work too, just witnessing your shadow instead of like judging it immediately when it comes up, you know, because I mean that's what I've done, like just tear myself down,
Yeah.
like once it comes up because you're so ashamed or whatever, but
Yeah.
just witnessing it and trying not to react to it.
Yeah.
I think it teaches you a lot about the shadow itself.
Yeah. I mean, and it was hard for me because there was a point where I felt like Juana, you are very like ready to get in there, do the work, and and it may have looked like that on the outside, and I'm sure for you it was completely different. But in my head, it's like, how can it be something just so like, okay, I know I need to fix this. I know I gotta, And for me, it was like, I see all those things, but I am not ready, or I like resisted a lot. I didn't want to, because I knew how painful it would be, or how, it's sad to lose certain people, sometimes, and it's sad you don't want to hurt people by putting up a boundary, but you have to. But at the end, it's like, you're doing it out of love, you're doing it out of self-love, and you're doing it out of just creating a better relationship for everybody in your life. So, slowly but surely, I'm still integrating that a lot in my life, but I've definitely done it with, certain people and I mean, at the end, it's just not as bad as it seems, I think you just like, okay, like little steps, and it'll get you there.
Yeah, and like I would tell Adriana too, like, this is your own journey, what you perceive in other people's journeys as, oh my gosh, they're getting so far, and I just feel so stuck, and I feel like I'm going in the same cycle, and I feel like I'm not getting anywhere. But what I told Adriana, that she's not realizing that even being stuck, even staying in the same cycle, even that is growth. Because at some point you're going to get tired of going down the same road over and over again, to the point where you're going to be like, all right, something's got to change. So that in itself is part of the journey, because I've been stuck in cycles and stuff for such a long time. And then it looks like I'm one to always am go-getter and blah, blah, blah. But really, most of the time I'm really still. I do my shadow work and I do stuff when I feel ready. But in the midst of that calmness, I am raising my vibrations. I am going out into nature. I just do some things for myself, because it takes me a lot. I do a lot of energy work, and part of the work that I do on my side business is spiritual work. So a lot of it has to do with me doing a lot of energy work, going out into nature, meditating, doing all that stuff. But even if you're not actually actively doing your shadow work, that's just part of the process of healing. So just putting one thing every single day for me, doing one thing for myself, even if it's something as small as just going outside and putting my feet into the ground, or touching a tree, or anything that makes me feel alive and good, and that fills my soul. Just for me, just one thing every single day I do it. And then it just became a habitual habit and a good pattern every single day, because I can fill other people's cup when my cup is filled, But shadow work, it is not easy, like I say. It is hard work, because you are looking deep into parts of self that you may not have even known were there, until people come into your lives and trigger something and then show you that shadow. Like, I am so grateful for doing earth and human spirituality stuff with my family, because they have taught me so much about myself. The healing we've done together has taught me a lot, and has shed light on my shadows and what it is that I need to work on. Because shadows, although aren't bad, we could use them to hurt others if we don't accept them within ourselves. So when we recognize because sometimes my patterns will come back around, and all of a sudden I see myself doing the same thing, and I'm like, ooh, I catch myself, I take accountability, I accept it, and I just change behavior, due to that.
Yeah. And I was telling Juana earlier, like, I still feel like, for me, I don't know about you guys, but for me, shadow work is just unfinished for me. Like, I haven't really, like, dove into it. Like, I've done some, but I still feel like it's unfinished, and it's going to be like healing, just an ongoing process over and over and over.
Yeah, and I told Amy, it feels exhausting. It feels like it's never ending, but your journey is your journey. Go at your pace. You don't have to dig in and do everything and blah blah blah, because your journey is your journey. However you are guided to do whatever you're supposed to do in your journey is just that, you know. I always say look within yourself, because we tend to get hard on ourselves when we look outside of ourselves and think, oh my gosh, this person's gone that far. Oh my gosh, this person knows even more. It's like, that's their journey though. That's what they came here to learn. And we have our own journey. Like, they're not any more special than anyone else. We all carry something beautiful to give to this world. It's just that we don't see it.
And that can, in itself is a trauma response, trying to, okay, I'm gonna work on this, and okay, let's get this done, get this out of the way, kind of thing. It's like, no, it's
Nope.
not like that.
You can try to do that, but if you're connected with your guides, they're gonna be like, nope, this is not what you're gonna slow down, because I'm a fire sign, so I'm like, go, go, go.
And I think when that comes back, and then you see like that cycle and that pattern, and then you realize you really haven't worked on it, that's just like,
You're like,
it's kind
ah!
of like the same, like
Yeah.
you're not in alignment with it, you know, you're not in the path that you're supposed to go down, because you're just rushing, or you're resisting. It could be both, you know.
Right.
So you just have to really just,
Be patient with
Yeah.
yourself. Be gentle with yourself.
yeah.
You're going to get where you feel like you want to be at your own time and your own pace. It's all right. And it's, like I said, it's ongoing. But most importantly, what I always say is just keep going on with your life. Don't say, oh, I need to finish this before I can do this. Or I want my career to be good. Or I need to make money before I can get into a relationship or anything. Never stop your life. Never stop your life for anybody or anything, because all that hard work could go down the drain and your life could end tomorrow. And then what? You then realize, shit, I wasted a lot of my time holding myself back, caring about what other people think, and throwing myself into work that I forgot to stop and smell the roses. I forgot to enjoy the journey when I was just so focused on the destination. So,
I think it's so true what you were talking about, like always still having that intention of like going out into nature and like grounding yourself and doing all that kind of work. Because when I started my healing, I felt like if I wasn't like actively journaling, or if I wasn't actively every day like focusing on one thing for the day, then I wasn't doing my work,
Productive.
you know. But I think I have come to find that even making sure that I'm still doing my morning routine of like Reiki and like even making my bed or doing small things like that is all part of the work too.
and not being disappointed with yourself if you just prefer to just stay home and just sleep and do that, because that's self-care too.
Yeah,
Sleeping
rest.
and resting. I, like Amy was saying about her Reiki and everything, her routine. I have like a routine that I did every day, but my schedule, maybe tomorrow my schedule isn't the same, you know, because every day is not the same day, you know, and some days you're not going to be able to get on that routine. And the purpose of it all is to make yourself feel good, but also not to, like, one day you didn't do your routine, so now I'm going to get into the habit of going back down the same cycle of not taking care of myself, not nurturing myself, and you know, because people tend to do that too when they forget their routine once or twice.
Fall back into the old patterns.
And you may come back to it, and then you'll learn a different perspective on it, and it's just ever changing, ever growing, and so.
Let's do our oracle cards. We're going to do a couple of them. I'm going to start with the Divine Abundance Oracle deck. This one is from Tasha Silver. This is my latest one that I got.
Did you show them?
Yeah.
Or you went?
No, I don't know. I thought you asked it. I showed.
That's pretty.
Very floral.
got, who wants to do it this time? Amy?
Oh, outrageous openness. Dear love, open me to your. Oh, sorry. Let's start over. Dear love, open me to your will. Release me from my attachment. Surprise and delight me with your plan. You know what's needed, and I am open to receive it. Huh.
That's really pretty. Yes. And this is actually a good one for the 8/8 portal today. So set your intentions. But by the time you see this video, you might not have intention. Yep. And then we're going to do another oracle card. It's a Moonology deck. So this is this one I've had, but I figured for the 8/8 portal that would be a good one.
Is there also Oracle?
Oracle, and this one is from Yasmin Boland. It's a Moonology deck oracle. I just spit. Oh, I like this.
Oh my
Okay,
gosh.
so it's believe in the impossible. Blue moon. So that's it. Have a good evening.